So my issue with Austin is...
Well, you were an LA guy first, then you moved to Austin.
So I started
to follow
in Austin.
the god Joe Rogan.
I started in Austin.
Oh, really?
My first 6 months of comedy was in Austin.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I had a really cool traveling job where I got to go to Houston and San Antonio a lot for work, where they would pay for my travel and my food and everything. So when I'd be in Houston and San Antonio, they'd put me on shows. And then I'd come back home to Austin and no one would put me on a show. And I was like, well, this fucking sucks. So I had a guy that offered me a job in LA and another dude offered me a place to live. So I moved with all my shit sight unseen out to LA.
This is way before the mothership.
No, this was 2018. This was 2018. Yeah. So I move out there and I have a sweetheart of a time. I have so much fun. And then 2020 happens and I lose everything out there. And then I was visiting back in Austin because it was open for the most part. My mom lived there. I was going back and visiting, and then I got arrested with a weed pen and charged with a felony. And my lawyer advised me that my best move was to move to Texas to be able to get that off my record. Okay. So I moved back in end of October, beginning of November of 2020, and then the rest of the city started growing with it, and all these people started coming, and it just blew up. So it's been interesting to see, because prior to Kill Tony becoming such a global phenomenon, Austin was, I would argue, from 2021 to 2023, the best city to be in the country for comedy, because there were 40 shows a week. There were people that only cared about, it was a meritocracy. It was just who's funniest is doing the most shows. People were trying to do the most shows in a night. People were talking about comedy in the green rooms. Everybody was friendly with everyone. It was fucking awesome. And then between Mothership and Kill Tony, it created just kind of a us versus them mentality. And it really separated the scene. And since then, what's happened is...
With the scene within Austin?
Yeah, within Austin.
Us versus them is like OG Austin comics and people that were a little
That was already like the strata that was there. There was this old Austin group that was like the Cap City Velveeta Room fucking Moon Tower people from before times. And then there was the new crowd that had cropped in that were all moving. And then there was the newest crowd that was like the Kill Tony and Mothership people. And then, so those were all kind of fluid before it really started to explode and people started to get like famous. And then they started to kind of put up barriers. And so it's been interesting to see the way that's like moved on. And but then the thing that's also weird is comedy scenes are built from the ground up. Like it always starts with the bottom rung of that, like whatever the first thing you can have that is like some notion of success in comedy, that is a big telltale sign of the scene. If your first real thing that you can do is getting on a decent bar show, like that's probably a good scene. But if the first real thing you can do is just getting up at like a club, like that's not going to be a bigger scene, because there should be more levels to getting to it. Like, and if the first big thing you can do is like 10 minutes on a big show in your city, then it's like you don't have much of a scene. And so now the first big thing you can do is 1 minute on the most famous show in the world. Yeah. And there's all these open mics around it where you could graduate and go a different route and go, your first big thing would be doing a bar show. And you could do it Austin like a real scene. But right there in the middle of all of it, every single week are 400 people signing up saying, I want to be famous. I'm ready. Yeah, no. And when we all started comedy, we had this thing in our head, like we saw famous people like, I could do that. I could be like that. And we went to open mics and we were humbled. And we were like, oh, I'm not there yet. Yeah. These people aren't going to open mics, and they don't need to, because they are only doing a minute of comedy and it's almost beside the point.
They're not even practicing. They're just going every Monday.
So they do that. They go and they sign up and they go, well, I'm good enough where I'm at. I'm hilarious. I'm interesting. I'm unique. The world needs to know about me. Yeah. And it's a notion we all had at some point or have. But the reward for the amount of work is monumental, and it's become a lottery system rather than a work system. Like I remember when I was 2 years into comedy, being in LA with all my friends and going and doing 20 open mics a week. And we just grouped together and did that. And now it's, you go 20 in a group to go sign up for your 1 minute thing. And it's like, well, that's not comedy, man. You're not doing it. And I think that the dividends of that is that people overall, like the scene is just getting exhausted with characters, and the people that get tired of going and signing up every Monday and not getting pulled are trying to figure out something else to do with comedy and how to, or they get pulled and nothing happens. And they go, what do I do now? And they go, well, I do comedy. I'll go do stand-up. So they go and do these things, and they don't have any talent. So it's created an interesting culture where people at other shows have heard, and like that, it's made its way into other scenes where you hear that like Austin's comedy scene is just saying slurs and stuff. And it's like, Well, when you were a new comic, that was a lot of comedy.
True.
When you were 2 or 3 years in, you were just figuring out how to not say the N-word and say the N-word. and I was like, well, how can I get away with it but not say it? And that was all of the beginning of comedy, and that's all they are. Because they're all brand new people, and so it's skewed the public perception of what stand-up is. So then someone like me, I'm not by any means an amazing stand-up comedian, but I'm good, and I'm almost 8 years in, and I know how to do just about everything there is to do stand-up wise. So when I go into a room, if I pull out my banger jokes, they're gonna kill. I've worked on them. So when I go into a room like that and then come and pull it out, it's like, oh shit, like you see it happen, and it's like, yeah, guys, that's the stand-up. That's what most of this should be.
Yeah.
And you can go to Mothership and you can see shows full of killers, but it's a $40 ticket and a 2-drink minimum, and the cheapest drink is $8. And so you go on a date and your date's $150 before you've even left the club.
Yeah.
And so like that's a great experience, but it is just like in the economy of things, you used to be able to go and pay $20 for 2 tickets and buy 2 fucking $5 wells that were huge and get hammered at a bar and see great comedians. And so it's just changed. And so that's the what I talk about with people that know comedy about. That's what's going on in Austin.
The middle's kind of dissipating.
Yeah, because there's no incentive for it.
Yeah.
If you look at like your idea of a stand-up comedian, it's like you're supposed to eventually be touring and doing stand-up and building your hour and then putting out your hour and then making a new hour and giving your fans stuff. And like in terms of going from an open mic to a host to a feature to a headliner, there's not anybody that's going from host to feature coming out of Austin that's not doing it on their own through a social media following or through Kill Tony. And it's just because the clubs aren't national chains and aren't promoting, like, you see the winners of FPIA, Cap Cities contest, like those people, Liz Splatt and JJ Curry, and like those people are getting dividends from it. But you know, it's tough to see the upward mobility outside of Kill Tony in the city, and I think that's damaging for a city that wants to pride itself on being like a comedy contender. You know.
Mm-hmm.
What a well thought out answer from a comic from Austin.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to be like, I was just full of faggots.
That's what I meant.